Now, measuring shoulder flexion, yes, we're looking at shoulder position and shoulder range of motion, but it's also giving some indication of rib cage and thorax position. So there's two ways we're going to measure shoulder flexion. First one is going to look at absolute motion. So we're just going to move the arm as far as we can overhead just to see this gross position. Then we're going to change our hand position a little bit and look at relative motion. This is going to give us indication as to how much shoulder flexion there is, but also insights into thorax and trunk position. So what we'll do here, first position to go absolute, is we're just going to grab the wrist like most of us learn how to do. I take my hand, put it on the rib cage just to make sure I'm controlling any compensatory moments. Because remember, I can push this as far as I want back, but sometimes you'll feel this rib cage pop up. So again, just like my hand on the shoulder for IR and ER, I'm using this as feedback as to when I feel compensatory movement. So I just put my hand on the rib cage, give a little bit of gentle pressure. Make sure you check when they're not ticklish. Sometimes they're a little ticklish during this one. Grab their wrist, and I'm just going as far as I can overhead until I start to feel this rib cage pop up into my hand. And this will refer to as absolute. And so roughly right here, about 170. Now, for relative, okay, we have to remember the amount of rotation that occurs. So sometimes you'll see folks stop here with absolute. But if you bias them to abduction and ER, you bias them a little bit more abduction, they'll get to the 180 degrees. The reason for that is the amount of rotation that occurs during the arc of shoulder flexion. So what I like to do here is take out the wrist and elbow, and I go right to the distal aspect of the humerus. I let the elbow bend. And now what I'm really doing is I'm controlling the amount of rotation that's existing in this humerus. Still, hand goes on the rib cage, okay? And now from here, I'm watching when I start to see any sort of rotation occur here, because now they have to move into ER to clear flexion. I'll also pay attention how much elevation is coming at the shoulder. So being very finicky here, give a little bit of rotation to make sure we stay neutral. I have pressure on the bottom of my thumb, right on their humerus to control for rotation. Have a firm grip on it, and now I'm just going straight. And you'll notice absolute versus relative, most of us have less. And so I'm stopping right about 90 to 100. Because if I push past 100, what ends up happening is she gets a little bit of rotation into ER to be able to clear her shoulder. So what that just tells me is this is the relative motion she has. It's okay to measure the absolute range. Just understand that they're probably going to compensate with some sort of rib flare, some sort of lumbar extension here. When I just measure relative, that gives us better indication as to where their movement limitations may be when we're looking at other true overhead positions where we want to control rib cage position. So Alex here can get overhead no problem. So what does that mean? She'll be able to do pull-ups. There's nothing wrong with that. But say we want to be a little bit more strict with trunk control, lumbo-pelvic position. Well, she only had about 100 degrees of shoulder flexion. So say we're doing a landmine press, say we're doing some sort of pull-down. We want to control that angle here to make sure she stays within her limits to be able to control trunk and rib position. So that's why we look at the two different measurements for shoulder flexion.